What does it mean when a man who once ruled fictional kingdoms is honored by a real one? In a grand hall illuminated by chandeliers and history, beneath the national emblem and the steady gaze of dignitaries, a moment unfolded that transcended entertainment. It was no longer about ratings, no longer about rumors, no longer about viral clips or late-night arrivals. It was about legacy. And at the center of that legacy stood Lee Min-ho, receiving a presidential honor in recognition of his cultural impact, global influence, and contribution to the spread of Korean storytelling across continents. But history rarely arrives alone. Standing just steps away, composed and luminous, was Hye Kyo. And in that image, captured forever in official photographs, the narrative shifted once again. If you are still watching, subscribe. Let's get the story started as the world of your favorite celebrity unfolds.
Stay tuned.
The ceremony itself was dignified and deliberate. Officials spoke of soft power, of the Korean wave expanding beyond borders, of dramas that carried language, fashion, and identity into living rooms across the world. They spoke of an industry that reshaped global entertainment. And then they spoke his name. Lee Min-ho's rise began not in palaces, but in classrooms and casting rooms. His breakthrough in Boys Over Flowers did more than create a star. It ignited a generation of international viewers who suddenly found themselves immersed in Korean narratives. His image traveled far beyond Seoul, becoming synonymous with a new era of global drama consumption. Years later, with ambitious productions like The King, Eternal Monarch, he embodied grandeur on screen. A monarch navigating parallel universes. A fictional ruler commanding a kingdom divided by fate. But this day was different. There were no scripts, no retakes, no background music swelling on cue. Just a man standing before his nation's leadership, recognized not for a role, but for impact. The medal was placed with precision. Applause filled the chamber, measured yet powerful. Cameras flashed, not in chaotic frenzy, but in controlled acknowledgement of significance. And beside him, Hye Kyo watched. Her presence was not incidental. She too has shaped the global perception of Korean drama. From the emotional depth of Autumn in My Heart to the worldwide phenomenon of Descendants of the Sun and her commanding performance in The Glory, she has defined eras. Two pillars of the same cultural movement. Two artists whose careers have run parallel for decades. But this time, they were framed together in a moment of national recognition. Observers could not ignore the symbolism. Hye Kyo seated among honored guests, her gaze steady as Lee Min-ho accepted the medal. The subtle exchange of smiles. The quiet applause that felt personal as well as formal. For fans who have followed weeks of speculation about their relationship, the optics were striking. Not a rumor. Not a blurry clip. Not a late-night mystery. A state ceremony. There is gravity in such settings. Presidential honors are not entertainment spectacles. They are institutional acknowledgments of contribution to national identity and global image. To receive one is to be woven into the cultural fabric of a country. And to stand beside the recipient during that moment is to share, at least symbolically, in that recognition. The internet reacted swiftly. Some hailed it as confirmation of unity, not necessarily romantic, but historical. Two cultural icons occupying the same ceremonial frame. Others interpreted her presence as professional support, a colleague honoring a colleague's achievement. But beneath interpretation lies undeniable resonance. Lee Min-ho's acceptance speech, delivered with composure, emphasized gratitude. To fans. To collaborators. To the industry that shaped him. He spoke of responsibility that accompanies influence. Of representing Korean storytelling with dignity abroad. It was not a romantic declaration. It was something larger. And yet, when cameras captured a brief exchange between him and Hye Kyo after the ceremony, an understated smile, a quiet word, it added texture to an already layered moment. This was not the spectacle of gossip. This was institutional validation. For years, Korean actors have carried the weight of expanding cultural diplomacy through art. Dramas have become ambassadors. Streaming platforms have erased borders. Subtitles have become bridges. Lee Min-ho stands among the figures who propelled that transformation. Song Hye Kyo stands among those who sustained it. To witness one receiving presidential honor while the other stood present created a tableau of continuity, past and present, individual achievement and collective legacy. The phrase historic moment is often overused. But when entertainment intersects with state recognition, when fictional kings are honored by real institutions, when two defining faces of a generation share the same ceremonial spotlight, history feels tangible. And perhaps that is the most compelling revelation of all. Not whether they are together, not whether rumors hold truth, but that both have transcended rumor entirely. They are no longer merely stars. They are cultural landmarks. The applause has faded. The medal has been secured. Official photographs now circulate across national archives and international media. And in those images, preserved beyond speculation, stands Lee Min-ho with the weight of recognition upon his chest. And nearby, Song Hye Kyo, witness to a moment that will outlive every headline. History does not whisper. It records. And this chapter has now been written. And what lingers after the applause fades is not the sound of celebration, but the weight of permanence. Long after the ceremony concluded, after dignitaries departed, and the grand hall emptied of its formal energy, the images remained. Official photographs released to the press. Close, dignified frames of Lee Min-ho standing beneath the national emblem, the presidential medal resting against his chest. Images of him bowing slightly in gratitude. Images of applause rising in respectful unison. And in several of those frames, visible among the distinguished guests, was Song Hye Kyo. Not as a headline, not as a rumor, but as presence. The significance of such recognition cannot be overstated. Presidential honors are reserved for individuals whose contributions extend beyond entertainment metrics, beyond box office figures, beyond streaming statistics. They mark influence that shapes national image, strengthens cultural diplomacy, and inspires future generations. Lee Min-ho's journey from breakout heartthrob in Boys Over Flowers to global ambassador of Korean storytelling has been measured in milestones. Sold-out fan meetings across continents. Projects that dominated international platforms. Roles that introduced Korean narratives to audiences who had never before encountered them. Yet on this day, his achievement was framed not in romance or fantasy, but in state acknowledgement. Song Hye Kyo's presence amplified that frame. Her own legacy, forged through works like Descendants of the Sun and redefined with the intensity of the glory, mirrors the same global expansion of Korean cultural power. Together, their careers trace the arc of an industry's evolution from regional phenomenon to global force. That is why the visual carried such resonance. Not because of speculation, but because it symbolized continuity. Two figures who helped build the bridge between Seoul and the world now sharing the same ceremonial space as the nation formally recognizes one of them. It felt less like coincidence and more like convergence. Observers noted subtle details. The timing of her applause. The composed smile exchanged after his speech. The way the cameras naturally gravitated toward capturing them within the same frame. No overt gestures. No dramatic declarations. Just quiet alignment. In the aftermath, commentary shifted from romance to reverence. Analysts discussed the broader implications of cultural diplomacy. How actors once perceived as entertainers have become unofficial ambassadors. How the Korean wave, once an emerging trend, now commands institutional recognition. Lee Min-ho's acceptance speech reflected that transformation. He spoke of responsibility, of representing Korea's artistry with integrity, of gratitude toward collaborators who shaped his path. His tone was measured, reflective, grounded in humility rather than spectacle. And through it all, Song Hye Kyo remained present, a silent witness to a chapter that elevated one of their generation's defining figures into the realm of national legacy. If earlier weeks were defined by speculation, rings, airport arrivals, viral clips, this moment felt different. It rose above conjecture. It existed in official record. There is something profoundly symbolic about that. Rumors live in comment sections. Honors live in archives. The contrast reshapes perspective. Whatever personal narrative may or may not exist between them becomes secondary to the undeniable fact that both stand among the architects of Korea's modern cultural identity. The ceremony will be remembered not for gossip, but for recognition. Lee Min-ho now carries a presidential distinction that cements his role in history. Song Hye Kyo continues to shape her own path with equal stature. Whether together personally or simply aligned professionally, they occupy a rare space few entertainers reach. They are no longer just leading actors in dramas. They are part of the national story. As the official portraits circulate and the medal gleams under archival lighting, one truth becomes clear. Fame may fluctuate. Headlines may shift. Speculation may rise and fall. But institutional honor endures. And in that grand hall, beneath chandeliers and history, a fictional king became something even more significant. A recognized pillar of his nation's cultural legacy, with a fellow icon standing close enough to share the frame.